Hello everyone. This is a review of the Gossamer Gear G4-20, an ultralight frameless backpacking pack that weighs 25 ounces. This is not a sponsored review. I bought this as my first venture into the world of lower volume frameless packs, and for a few reasons, it's become my go-to pack when I'm on solo adventures. Let's get the obvious out of the way. The G4-20 is blue. Quite blue. In fact, I'll admit that the color was the first thing that drew me to this pack, and when it rose to near the top of my frameless pack spreadsheet, I was quite pleased. Their titanium gray color option is also rather striking in my opinion, and I applaud Gossamer Gear for being bold with their colors. Some of us rather like that. The G4-20 comes in 3 sizes, with corresponding torso and hip belt sizes. If you size up the torso, the hip belt size also increases, making the fit for tall but thin frame people a bit difficult. I originally used the medium because I have a belt size of 29 inches, but after 40 wonderful miles on the Superior Trail, I realized I was just barely too tall for it. So I bought the large, and surprisingly, I found the hip belt actually fit just fine, although I'd say anyone with a solid 27-inch waist is probably going to be pushing the limits here. I got lucky. The large fits like a dream, and 68 miles on the Superior Trail later that summer proved that. Let's take a quick tour around the outside. On the back, there's a wonderful mesh and nylon stretchy pocket, useful for stashing all manner of things. Above that is a small, quick-access pouch, secured with a waterproof zipper. To the left, we find Gossamer Gear's signature quiver side pocket, useful for holding larger items outside the pack, and a simple crossed compression cord. The front shows off the large and nicely padded shoulder straps with a decent amount of lashing options. Excellent if you're a photographer like me. The full-size hip belt has 2 pockets, a mesh thing on the right and a wonderful standard pocket on the left. The back panel has a removable foam sit pad held in place with some stretchy mesh. The right side has a luxuriously easy-to-use angled water bottle pocket and another crossed compression cord. Moving on to the top, the main compartment is secured with a nice roll-top mechanism, as well as a long strap over the top. Interestingly, this long strap can be removed quite easily to shave grams if you don't need it. Below that is a feature I really love, a tiny pocket with a waterproof zipper. This is great for small personal items that would get lost anywhere else, nail clippers, medication, lens wipes, or spare SD cards. The back of the pack has 6 lashing loops and an ice axe loop in one corner. Up by the top handle are 2 ports for a hydration system, which I do not use. All in all, a simple pack, but this one seems to get the simplicity just right. The fit and finish of this pack also deserves mention. Most packs are constructed well, but this pack really just takes it to another level. This whole thing feels tolerance down to the millimeter, every curve optimized, and more than any other pack I own, this thing just feels quality. The folks at Gossamer Gear really know what they're doing. Putting on the pack, the hip belt adjusts with a center pull design, and the sternum strap has some elastic built in, as well as a whistle. Overall, the pack fits wonderfully. Did I mention it's really blue? There's ample padding everywhere, and when packed and compressed properly, it carries really well. One downside some of you might have noticed is the lack of load lifters. There's some debate if this helps at all without a frame, so I don't knock Gossamer Gear too much for not including them, but in general, and especially when I've got a top-heavy load, I personally like them. I should note that this is the medium I'm trying on right now. I didn't have the large in hand when I recorded this, but again, I'm about 6 foot even with a 19.5-inch torso and about 155 pounds. The medium is just barely too small, which is why it looks like it fits perfectly here, but after 40 miles of hard Superior Trail, I certainly needed to size up. An underappreciated luxury is how easy the water bottle pocket is to access on this pack. It sits as low as possible on the pack, which means it's a breeze to reach. Speaking of luxury, the hip belt pocket is possibly the nicest design I have ever encountered. Large, with a silky smooth waterproof zipper, and most importantly, it can be closed with one hand. The other side is more of a mixed bag for me. With a low-profile stretch mesh pocket, I found the best use case was to hold my phone, and it does this remarkably well. When the hip belt is curved, it's quite secure. Unfortunately, nothing else will really fit in that use case, and I ended up getting a really nice add-on pocket from Gossamer Gear to make up for this deficiency. The shoulder strap attachment points are nice, including vertical, horizontal, and a D-ring. I use the vertical one for attaching a camera capture clip, and the D-ring to hang my GoPro with some shock cord, so the versatility here is appreciated. More than a lot of outdoors gear, backpacks are a very subjective item, with fit, features, and comfort being a matter of personal preference, more than something like a stove. Take my opinions here with a grain of salt, and always look for your pack last after you've dialed in the rest of your setup. That error is actually what drove me to this pack in the first place. I came from a 60-liter backpack, the wonderful Granite Gear Crown 2, and after taking it on a spring trip on the Superior Trail, found that even with its comprehensive compression straps, my kit had shrunk to the point that using it was rather cumbersome. With a total of 42 liters, the G4-20 is a much better fit for me. And did I mention that it's blue? Overall, my experience with this pack has been fantastic. I love the comfort of the generously padded straps and the useful arrangement of the pockets. Perhaps the most telling thing I can say about this pack is that in my adventures with it this summer, the pack doesn't stick out in my mind at all. It melted into the background of the gorgeous Minnesota North Woods, working without frustration or annoyance in nearly every aspect of its use. That means my complaints with this pack are relatively minor. However, I do have some. Perhaps the largest is truly a usability error in my opinion. The large size fits me well, but the vertical attachment on the shoulder straps is simply too low to use comfortably with a camera attachment. I prefer it much higher, on my shoulder. I cannot fault them too much for this, since I imagine the large size is meant for someone of truly larger stature than me, with a larger chest that would place the attachment point higher up. I'm planning on aggressively hand-sewing some of my own daisy chains on the shoulder straps to remedy this, but I wish the pack had an extra set built in. The only other true annoyance are the compression straps on the side. They don't extend down far enough for my liking, which often led to a rather saggy feeling bag when at lower capacities. I appreciate that there are more points for attachment on the side with the water bottle pocket, but on the other side, the extra attachment points would cover up the top of the tall pocket, making it impractical to use. I mentioned I'm also not a huge fan of the right mesh hip belt pocket, and although I fixed that easily, it's still a confusing default addition to this pack I'm not sure anyone was really asking for. Don't write it off completely though. I can see some use cases where it would actually be quite nice, since it's a relatively secure pocket for quickly grabbing snacks. It's just not my cup of tea. The back panel should also be mentioned. Surprisingly, I didn't have airflow issues. My back was overall comfortable, but for my back shape, the placement of the logo meant that for the first 10 miles, I felt it. After that, the feeling disappeared, so perhaps this is just something with a new sit pad that needs some breaking in, but I thought I'd mention it. There are a few things I can't comment on. I haven't taken this on a thru hike, so I don't know its long-term durability, but considering other Gossamer gear packs are favorites for thru hikers, I'm confident that this will last. I also don't use the quiver pocket for storing anything large. It's a spot for my water filter and storage bag, so that use case is foreign to me. The add-on hip belt pocket is a new addition. I think it'll work well, but I haven't actually taken it out yet. I also don't hike in areas where bear cans are necessary, so I haven't used this with one, but it can fit them vertically. My base weight right now is around 10 to 13 pounds, depending on the trip, and with a week's worth of food, I took this just up past 20 pounds comfortably, but not past that, so I don't know how heavier loads will carry. Heavier loads, however, are not really the point of this pack, and I do need to talk about that. In some ways, this pack fits into a very narrow use case. It's frameless, ultralight, designed for thru hiking, yet has a non-removable hip belt with an enormous amount of padding for a pack of this class. Most comparable minimal packs in this range have removable hip belts, since a lot of users choose to forego them or only use a 1-inch webbing belt. If you get this pack, you're committing to a heavy yet comfortable hip belt at all times, and with 8-pound base weights, that's often a tough sell. But not for me. If you're wondering who would love this pack, I fit perfectly into that group, because no matter what pack I wear, I always love a hip belt, and finding an ultralight frameless pack at this volume with a supremely comfortable hip belt means I spend my days on trail quite happy. So if you're like me and are ready to make the transition to a frameless pack with a base weight below 15 pounds, but can't imagine ever getting rid of a hip belt, the G4-20 is just a truly delightful pack and should be well worth your consideration.